Hey, I'm Pat, and in this video we'll be going over methods, what are methods, and we'll be going over some built-in Roblox methods. So a method is basically a function, and it belongs to like a specific object or like an instance or something like that. So like it belongs to something, and you can call it on that thing, and the method will relate to it. So it's really just a function, but it kind of belongs to an instance, and instead of using a period or just using its name, you use a colon. So I'll give you an example. The first one I guess we can go over is FindFirstChild. So what we'll do is, actually we'll just do this. We'll do make a variable called part, and we'll make it equal to workspace. And then we'll use FindFirstChild on workspace. And what FindFirstChild does is it searches for the first child with the name that it's given. So we use a semicolon to call it, and we put quotation marks, and now you can see it actually suggests some children in here. But what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna put part, because we're looking for a child called part. And then we'll do if part, and we'll print part found, I guess, and otherwise we'll do so go ahead and test this, and you'll see part not found. So what FindFirstChild does is it searches for this, searches for a child called part, and if it doesn't find the child called part, then it will actually return nil. And if it does find the part, then it will return the instance with the name that it found, right? So this is very useful if you're trying to check if something exists or not. And say like you have like a shop system and somebody buys like a certain tool or something, or a weapon, and you want to check to see if the weapon that they're buying is like available in the shop, or make sure the weapon that they're buying actually exists or something like that. You know, you'd use FindFirstChild, right? So hopefully that makes sense. It's not too complicated. You can use, you know, FindFirstChild in the condition as well. You don't need to store it in a variable, but you know, if you want to use the variable later on, it's good to have it in a variable. Next one would be WaitForChild. So what WaitForChild does is it basically does what it says. It waits for a child to be added to the instance that's given. So we'll do workspace WaitForChild part. So it will pretty much yield the script. It's like task.wait, so it'll stop the script right here, and it will not run any code after it until it finds a child called part under workspace. Alright, so what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to make a part, and I'll make a separate script. And in the separate script, what we'll do is we'll add the part parented to this. So we'll just call this script 1. I can't spell, and I just deleted that. And this one will be script 2. We're going to use script now because I couldn't spell the first time. And what we'll do is we'll wait like 3 seconds, and then we'll set script.part, and we'll set its parent to workspace. So we can set its parent by just doing parent, and then equals the instance we want to parent it to, right? So we reference our part, which is script.part, it's a child of the part, and then we get its parent and we set it to workspace after 3 seconds. And now what this script will do is it'll wait. So we'll go ahead and print 1, and then we'll print 2 afterwards. So we'll wait until the part's added, and once it's added, you'll see it it'll print the 2. So we get 1, and then a few seconds later we get 2, and you can see it's actually added to the workspace, right? So what if we delete that script and then try and run it, right? So the part will actually never be added to workspace in this case. And we should get an error. There it is. Infinite yield possible. So what it's saying is this is actually not an error, this is actually a warning. The warning is orange text. But what it's basically saying is the part was never added to workspace. So it could never find this child that's called part. And it's possible that the script could forever yield on this line and never go past it. Is basically what it's saying there. So it's not really an error, but I mean, if it's saying infinite yield possible, there's a good chance the rest of your script isn't running after this, right? So you have to make sure that part's being added or something of that sort. Now there's also GetService, which lets us check to see what type of instance is. So if you click on an instance and you look in its properties, you can see there's a property called class name, and it's kind of locked. You can't change it, but you'll see each instance actually has its own class name. So we got terrain, we got spawn location, camera is a camera, workspace is, you know, workspace, script is a script, right? So say we want to check to see what kind of instance something is. So we'll use our part as the base plate just for now, and we'll print we'll check to see what it is. So we'll use part, and then we'll use GetService, and then once we put our quotation marks, you'll see it actually gives us like a lot of suggestions for all the different instance types, and we can actually start typing. It'll, you know, give us suggestions. So we'll autofill with part. Actually, we'll make the first one called script, and then we'll do an else if part is a part. So if it's a script, it'll print 1. If it's a part, it'll print 2. Let's see what it does. I guess you have a pretty good idea, right? So it prints 2, which is, you know, kind of what we wanted. So hopefully that makes a good demonstration. It tells you what, you know, it allows you to check to see if it's a certain instance, which is very useful because some instances only have specific methods that are like, the methods are specific to that instance type. So like only parts have certain like methods or events and other things, and only scripts have like certain things, and you know, things like that. So it's useful to be able to tell what kind of instance something is. And now say we want to find a child, which is like, we want to find a child which is of type of an instance. So we can use FindFirstChildWhichIsA, which is, you know, kind of self-explanatory. It's finding the first child it can, which is a, and then we give it the instance type we want to find. So we'll give it a part, and what we'll do is we'll print the part. Now you can't actually just print the part and it'll print the part's name, but we're just going to type in .name to be kind of more clear. And you see it prints baseplate because the first part in workspace, that's a part, or first instance in workspace, that's a part, is the baseplate. So it prints that out, right? That should make sense. And then the next one, this is kind of where it gets a little bit more confusing, I guess, if you don't have a full grasp on tables yet. But we can do something called GetChildren. And what we'll do is we'll actually add a folder to the workspace. Under this folder, we'll add some parts. Alright. We'll give it a few parts. Alright. Now say we want to get all these parts and we want to do something with these parts. Or say this is a model and we want to, because obviously a model, actually that's a better example. So we'll parent this to workspace and we'll go ahead and group these. And now we have a model. And we have 3 parts inside the model. Now, all these parts are actually the same. So, you'll see they're actually, here, I'll like separate them a little bit. I have the wrong stud movement thing on, but it's okay. So, you can see all these parts are the same, but once we click on the model, we don't actually have access to all these, you know, properties of the part, like its material or color. So if we wanted to change something like that for all the parts inside the model, we'd have to do that like individually, or we'd have to do something else. Kind of weird, right? So the best way to do this is we can get the children in the model. So we can do workspace.model, and then we can use the getChildren method. And what it does is it doesn't take any arguments, right? And it returns a table of all the children inside the instance that it's given, right? Inside the instance that it's being used on. So we're using on the model. So it's going to return a table of these 3 parts. Now what we can do is we can use our for loop. And we can loop through these children like we would any other table. So it's just a table of instances, really. And we can print v, and the v is going to be your instance. The I will always be in the index, which will be either a number or string depending, but usually when you're using GetChildren, I is always going to be a number. But we can print the name, and then we can also take the part and we'll set its color. What? Oh yeah, it's not going to autofill for this. And we'll make a new color, and we'll pick a blue. Blue color is the right word, yeah. So we run this, and you'll see it changes all the colors to blue, and it gives us part times 3, which basically means it printed part 3 times, right? So really, GetChildren isn't too complex. I see a lot of people like completely misusing GetChildren. I don't think they have like a full understanding on how tables work or anything like that, maybe. So it's not very complicated. Hopefully it makes sense. If it doesn't, you can always ask me questions. I'll answer them. And then the last one I kind of wanted to go over for this video, just for now, would be GetService. So I've talked in a few videos about how each thing you see right now is a service. All these things are actually children of game, and you can see even services on the name of, on the like end of each of some of their names, right? So the way you would access these usually would be like just doing game.serverScript service or something like that. But you know, there's a chance that you're working in a team and somebody might have changed like the name of one of the services or something, right? Which you can't actually do. Can I undo that? There we go. I don't want to name that, but you can't actually change the name. And if the names change in some instance, like if you're selling a script or if you're working with a group of people, then your scripts will just completely break if the name of the service is changed. So what we can do is we can use GetService actually, and then we can actually get our services just the same. And we can also get a ton of other services which are useful, very useful. They have built-in functions and methods which we can use. But for now I'm just gonna show you the example of like replicated storage will be a good one. So we can use game GetService to get any of the services in the game, and it's actually faster than doing like using dot, and it's better for coding practice, and also ignores the name property, so it doesn't matter what they're called. You see, it's just getting them by their class basically, because there's only one type of each service in a game. And then we can just store it in a variable like we would any other reference to an instance. So really, it's just returning the replicated storage service, right? That's all it's doing. So it's just the same as using game.replicated storage, right? So that should make sense. Alright, so that's pretty much all I needed as far as going over methods for this video. And the last thing I guess I'll do is talk about making you do like a script on your own or something like that, right? So what I want you to do is here. So we'll make a folder in Workspace, right? And this one's actually gonna be kind of like a complicated thing. So we'll make a folder and we'll call it like I don't know what to call it, bro. Instances or something like that, right? And what we'll do is, I can't insert a group. Alright, we'll put in a few parts and follow me through this, so that way you have the same thing as me that you can write a script for. And we'll take these 3 parts and we'll group them, and we'll add another part in here just to confuse you even more. And then the last thing we'll add in here is, let's add a script. Alright, so we'll add a script in there. So now what I want you to do is make a script that goes into this folder and changes every part in this folder to, you know, like a different color or a different material or something like that, right? So obviously you're gonna have to loop through even the model here, which has parts in it, and you're gonna also have to access this part which is in the folder itself, while also ignoring the script that's here. So you can go ahead and pause the video for now, and I'll show you my solution in a few seconds, but I highly recommend you go ahead and try this on your own. It's a little bit harder than the previous videos for sure, but nothing wrong with the challenge. It's always good to go out of your comfort zone and try something that you're not comfortable with, especially when it comes to scripting, because that's the best way you learn, really. So pause the video, because I'm gonna do my solution now. In case you don't want to get spoiled, I would pause the video and try it on your own. Alright, so my solution, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a reference to our folder. So I'm gonna do workspace.instances to get our folder, and actually we're just gonna make a straight children variable. So we're gonna use GetChildren on our folder. Folder's called instances. We use GetChildren, and that allows us to get all the children in it. So now the next thing we're gonna need to do is make a for loop. And you always use iPairs because it returns a table. All of the they're always instances, so iPairs is the best thing to use when you're using GetChildren. And we just put children in here because it's a table. So we got our children, we're gonna loop through them. Now we need to make sure that the child that we're currently on is not a script, or at least make sure it's not a part, or make sure that it's a part or a model. So the way we're gonna do that is you can either have an if statement checking if it's a script, or you can have an if statement checking if it's a model or part. And I'll do model or part because that's kind of what we're doing. So we're going to use IsA on it, and we're going to use part. So if the instance that we're currently on is a part, or actually we're not going to use or. If it's a part, then what we'll do is we'll set its material to salt, because that's a cool material, right? And if it's not a part, then we'll check if it's a model. Alright, so we're going to check if it's a model, and if it is a model, then we're going to do another for loop. And now once you do your second for loop, you're going to have to change the name of your variables, because the variables in here can be used inside of this for loop as well. But you don't want them to be confused with the variables they're using for this for loop. So what I do is I just use like XY or something. And we'll use GetChildren on V because V is a current instance. I didn't want to delete that. And V is a model because we checked it here. I am dying. Alright. And now what we know is Y is going to be the parts inside of this model. Now what we could do is another if check to check if it's a part, but you can see in like this use case that doesn't really matter. All the parts inside this model are parts, so we don't need to add like an if statement or anything. That'd be definitely kind of ugly, especially with how many indentations we're getting here. So now what we'll do is we'll set the material to the same thing here, and we'll just change the V to a Y because the Y is our part in this for loop at least, right? So now let's go ahead and test it and see if it runs first try, like they always do. Every script runs first try. And you can see it worked perfectly first try because I am indeed a genius. And look at that. So that's pretty much what was expected to happen with your script. I guess I maybe should start showing you like the expected output, and as well as telling you like what I want you to do, because it's kind of getting a little bit more complicated for you. But here's what we got. Some parts. Actually, it kind of looks cool. And yeah, that's it for this video. If this didn't make any sense to you or something, just ask in the comments or whatever, and I'll see you in the next one.